Maya through her book, Ayurveda, A Life of Balance. And I'd read the book many years ago, one of my favorite books, and really touched my heart. And when she came a couple years ago and we all were able to spend time with her and meet her, I realized how she really transitioned from someone that I looked at as a wonderful author to someone I really feel as an archetype in our lives, because she really is the embodiment of bliss, of love, of compassion, and of presence. And last time she was here with us, that was so obvious and so powerful, and I'm so glad that she's back here again. So please join me in welcoming back Maya Tiwari.
Thank you so much. Namaste. It is a joy to be back here in this beautiful divine space that Deepak has created for all of us. The work that I'm introducing has to do with my own journey. And that is, at 16, I came to New York, born in a very staunch Hindu home in British Guyana then, and was so elated by the freedom that I felt to be in this incredible city, creative, amazing, pioneering place. Certainly, I went to Greenwich Village directly, coming from a village of 500 people on the Quarantine Coast. And it was a dramatic shift. Happened to have been the year of Woodstock, and I went there too. Years later, I ran into the people that I went with, an artist group that was at that time living in a loft space called Westbeth, which was an artist kind of space on the west side, and brought up the fact that we were together at Woodstock. They had no memory of it. My profound memory of that time was I'm standing there in the haze and the smoke and the mud and the wet in my Balenciaga outfit and the Sassoon haircut, totally befuddled by this amazing experience. And then out of that haze on stage came this swell of orange. Swami Satchitanandaji opened that event. And I remember from that vision that we can never run from our roots. And so, after a little while, I had ovarian cancer and then survived it by some divine miracle. And it brought me back to the path of the ancestors. I became a Vedic monk for some decades, and then understood that that blessing is something that's within and not necessarily without, although it blesses everything. I dropped my robes in 2011, or 2010, I think it was. And it's so interesting because we take to these initiations for the reason of simplicity and narrowing the material portions of our life. But I understood that we are in a creative space and time, a juncture that really brings us into truly that one we have been seeking, all of our karma, all through the past millennia of our lives. And that in that space I didn't need to be identified in any specific color, although I love orange. And that to be truly free, we have these incredible inner work that we're doing here this week with Seduction of the Spirit. And that is where all of the bounty of freedom lies. At the same time that I dropped my robes, I was at the Parliament of World Religion in Melbourne, Australia, doing the keynote representing the Hindu convocation there. And I also did the first peace mandala while I was there. And we'd love to show you some of that work, because what the Peace Mandala is, it has now become global. It's offering back the sentient seed back to Mother Earth with the memory that she did give us so much. Our sentiency and awareness and consciousness really depends on the well-being of our mother, of our earth. And so we use organic grains and seeds and legumes to take the vrata, or the sankalpa, or intent as you may call it, for the vow of Ahimsa. How many of us know what Ahimsa means? It is really the guiding foundational tenet of yoga and of Ayurveda. Oh, I should say that I did start the first school for Ayurveda in America in 1981 in New York, and then shifted to North Carolina, where we had been training practitioners in Ayurveda. And it's been part and parcel of the work that I have been doing for the past 35 years. The Peace Mandala work, for me, was simplifying everything that had happened in my very complex and dynamically packed journey in my life, to the point where I understood that we really, the intent, the sankalpa of living that sankalpa, as our friends were saying just now, from day to day, moment to moment, not just in the retreats that we attend. But that sankalpa, if it is seeded deeply within us, through this vow is not a vow with anyone, it's a vow to ourselves with the witness of Mother Earth. And the vow of Ahimsa is I take the vow of Ahimsa, I make in harmony my first priority in my thought, speech, and action. And in so many languages it is repeated. The seed is placed upon the mandala in free form. The communities join together. We've had this actually presented. Again, I was at the Parliament of World Religion just a week or so ago in Salt Lake City in Utah, where I opened the event with my Shakti anthem, which the music that I'm doing now. But more importantly, we had the Peace Mandala running there for 5 days in the exhibition hall, and so many of the delegates and participants who attended this event came to place their seed upon the mandala cloth with their vow of Ahimsa, and it was very, very beautiful to watch. Can we show some of those slides from the recent Parliament of World Religion? This actually was taken in Australia, and what we find is happening. Community get together, and then different shapes and forms are placed, and I started to see from country to country, like Brazil, Australia, UK, Canada, wherever I've gone, India, that the mandala, when it's finished, actually takes on the native forms of that land. For instance, in Australia, when we were there, I've done 3 tours in Australia with the Peace Mandala, and we go from community to community. And we had some of the Aboriginal members and leaders who came to these events, and they were so amazed that some of the forms that the mandala took were the actual image of their images, like Muk the owl, which is one of their amazing image. Here in India, we had, this looks like Ganesh, if you know Ganesh, Ganapati, and so it's not taking on like the dollar sign or anything like that, or any of the big branding stuff that we have in our modern culture. It's always emulating the forms and shapes of the actual nativity of that land. It is so amazing. It occurred to me then, why would that be happening? We are there with our individual awareness, forming this mandala, which has and takes on a shape of its own collectively, and then it starts to look like the lands that we are in. And we understand that there is this amazing memory that our land and our ancestors have always carried. And that memory just rouses up. It's like nature loves nature, or nature imitates nature. it comes back up into the sentiency. We are so connected to Mother Earth. And this peace mandala really, I'm so humbled to be here to tell you that it really does represent our intent to be connected back to her, to be kind to ourselves, to be kind to the resources of our land. And just to take that vow or vrata of Ahimsa, it doesn't change our lives dramatically in the way that we all of a sudden become a saint. But what it does do is every time we go into the habituation of our beliefs or the habituation of our ancestors or habituations that some of which can hold us back, those habituations that we have like a negative response or whatever, that we remember to remember this amazing pact that we have made with ourselves. And in that way, it is truly beautiful. Shall we go on, scroll on? Yes. Look at some of the most amazing light that comes. This, I think, happened in the UK with members of the family. It looked like the dragon fly, which is a favorite of mine. That's just my being at the Parliament. I did do the plenary talk as well for the Women's Assembly, which was based on Shakti, our Shakti understanding, because what is Shakti really? Before we make it too commercialized and have it as the brand name of clothing and perfumes and everything else, really we want to remember it to be that divine feminine force that is Mother Earth herself, that both men and women have, all children have it, all species have it, but women have it in this powerful form that gives birth to nourishment and nurturance and healing, that give birth to creativity. Do you know the mandala, the patterns of the Rangoli? Have you seen them? Those beautiful patterns that are made with sand or made with the grain flour. You see them in South India, North India, wherever, in front of people's homes. That those are done by women. Never you see men making the rangolis or the mandalas. And they're done even in the poorest of community. The women go out and they make these exquisite rangolis, and so very quickly they do it. Because what they're actually doing is setting the pattern of the mind for that community. It is the women who set those patterns. Just through the work that they do. That is part of the Shakti tradition that India has maintained for so long. So what do we do with these magnificent? That was in Sao Paulo, and that was a community of yoga. At a yoga event, it had several thousand people that contributed to these mandalas. And some are smaller, some are larger, but they are all incredibly emulating. This was at the recent parliament, the beginning of the mandala. It was installed in front of there was a beautiful exhibition of Gandhi, Mandela, and Martin Luther King and other peace leaders, and it was such an appropriate place to put the peace mandala. It's very beautiful. But Ahimsa in Gandhi's time was about, freeing India from the colonized rule of Britain. And what Ahimsa is a tenet in the Vedas that also influenced the Jain community heavily, and they have maintained it so very well, in fact. What Ahimsa really is for us today in this juncture of changing time, when I say we don't need robes or these types of identification, although those of us who wear it still, it is our personal blessing to do so, that basically it's about the Ahimsa inside of us. It is about how much peace can I invest inside of the configuration of memory that I carry as a human person. That sentiency depends on memory. That memory comes from a seed, and that seed is seeded through all of our births and past and humongous, endless end. It's said in the Vedas that we take about, about 7 million births to come into our consciousness. Anyway, don't worry about that. We're all doing great, considering that, we're not doing any harm. But the harm that we're talking about in Ahimsa is usually the harm to our own selves, the harm in not mirroring our responses, our reactions, our beliefs, our habits, these things that are not as clear to us. And then we become clearer as we sit in our own meditation, as we know, because it is a form of mirroring. Oh, here I was with the Shiros. We didn't really set in the program that I was to open the Women's Assembly at the Parliament, but there was this beautiful group of women, and I had not heard of them before. They're called Shiros instead of heroes, and they drum, and they're all over the world, and they said, we'd love to perform with you. So unrehearsed, we went up and opened the event with Shakti anthem, which you'll hear tonight. I'll be performing it for you. And it's really beautiful, beautiful music about reclaiming that incredible space of Shakti within us all, that we can really realize our powers of sentiency, our divine feminine prowess that we so need. And what is Mother Earth? She is only that amazing prowess, and just reconnecting back to her, knowing that that's where the seed of that sentient memory came from, that each seed represents the glory of our own consciousness, not just in terms of the resources we use, but that we are so much one with her, and when she hurts, we hurt. That Ahimsa is what this peace mandala is about. So I am so hoping that we can all get together and create a peace mandala here this evening, and just in concert with each other, in community with each other, in this amazing space and time that calls us to be one again, not just oneness, because that's just imitating one, but just to be at one with ourselves, and therefore with each other, in that spirit and light. Whatever that vow of Ahimsa means for you or for me, it is simply a reminder of the choice that I make to live in my life. I have found more obstacles, by the way, in the way of my life since I've taken this vow. I have run into more difficulties and rivers to cross. I thought I'd already done my big crossing. And when I started this work around the world, I realized that, oh my goodness, there is ways to go. Thank you. Thank you so much. This, I think, is the final mandala after 5 days and 10,000 participants at the Parliament. I think that was the final beautiful product. The seeds are taken back, by the way, to Mother Nature. And they're taken back with a ceremony. Many planters take it to their own gardens, and some people we used to just take it to the public parks, and then we realized that as the movement grew, we were going to get into trouble if all the parks have a myriad set of things that start growing. And no one understood why Jackson Square Park looked the way it did. That's in New York. So now we've organized groups of people, gardeners, who take it and put it back into the land. And the ceremony that goes with it is really beautiful. It is because it now has the intent and conscious sentiency of each human that has served it. And so when it goes back to the land, it's different from when we have harvested it. It goes back with human sentiency and the power to have our intent be heard to Mother Earth, whom we're so grateful for, whom we love, and whom we ask for her blessings, and also that food for one must be food for all, that all must be fed. Thank you so much. I see you later. Absolutely. Come back with me. All right.
So we'll do a few minutes of question and answer. If anyone has any questions for Maya, please feel free to ask them. Do you want to start by explaining a little bit more about what we'll do tonight?
Oh, yes. As we gather together, we'll have a mandala cloth which represents the earth, usually in Vedic auspicious colors, red, orange, yellow. And we open it with light, asking the grace of Mother Earth to be with us as the witness. And we also place our seeds. I can open it, you can open it, we can all open it. The first grain, I take the vow of Ahimsa. I make inner harmony my first priority. I take the vow of Ahimsa in my thoughts, speech, and action. And it's a simple, you'll have a vow card that has this. But you can use any statement that speaks to you and translate it in your own language as well. And at that point, we simply chant the mantra until everyone has taken their vow of Ahimsa and placed the seed. We don't bother about the configuration. It comes up. We will see what happens at the end of the evening, what incredible creation Mother Earth has given us, what means she has formed in her elements to make this mandala the shape and whatever it is. It gives us back such bounty. And in that, and we celebrate each other's commitment to Ahimsa in terms of just being with each other, helping each other to consolidate that vow or to make it remembered. Because, you know, in the human way that we live, it is witnessing each other's journey that gives us the courage to go forward. I hope you know that the human person is never meant to live alone. Even when we are amongst their particular order and community that we have. So this community of having each other who is at similar places, none of our journey is identical, and certainly not our karmas, but we're in a similar place in our lives where we are